Welcome to The Hidden Load, the podcast where we uncover the unseen weight carried by the educators and leaders in medicine and explore how to lighten it. I am Dr. Santina or Tina Wheat. I am a family physician, an educator, a leader, and a coach. Each week, we will dig into the challenges that often go unspoken, from burnout and boundaries to purpose and identity to figuring out sustainability, and share practical tools to help you move from chaos to calm and from burnout to balance. Because the hidden load does not have to be yours to carry alone, and in fact, shouldn't be. Let's get started.
This is episode number 5, Reflection, moving beyond the checkbox to something real. So far on this podcast, we have named what burnout is and talked about what the hidden load is. We have redefined balance as something that is ever moving and adjustment. We've talked about boundaries and how we can have them without adding to our guilt. And we've also explored self-advocacy. Now, each one of these has built towards this moment because today we are talking about reflection. Reflection is how we make meaning out of our experiences. And the problem is that reflection often gets a bad reputation in healthcare. If I'm honest, anytime someone asked me to reflect, I rolled my eyes and was extremely frustrated. And I don't think that I'm the only one. Too often, reflection can be reduced to a checkbox or a worksheet or an assignment that you need to complete when you can't do something else. It's an evaluation form where we are asked to write a paragraph that doesn't really change anything. And when that's our only exposure to reflection, it is no wonder that it feels tedious, frustrating, and even fake. But there is authentic reflection. And this is really important. Authentic reflection is the kind that helps us to grow as clinicians, as educators, and as leaders. And it is different than that fake reflection that I was just talking about. It is not about filling a box. It is about slowing down long enough that you can notice so many things. You might be asking yourself, what just happened? How did it affect me? And what might I want to do differently next time? So in today's episode, we're going to explore 3 things. First, why reflection matters, both for ourselves and the people that we teach and lead. Second, why it feels uncomfortable, and if we're honest, sometimes painful. And third, how to practice reflection in ways that feel real, authentic, and actually useful. And then at the end, I'll give you a teaser for our next episode, where we will talk about recovery, how to take a step back and actually replenish when things feel overwhelming. Okay, let's get started with why reflection matters. So now reflection is how we are able to connect the dots between our experience and our growth. We can all go through the many motions that there are of patient care, of teaching, or leadership, but without the time to reflect, we risk repeating the same patterns over and over and over again, and all of that without learning from them. I want you to think about it. After you've had a difficult conversation with a patient or even a challenging teaching moment, you might notice yourself replaying it in your mind later. That in itself is reflection. That is your brain trying to learn from the experience. When we reflect with intention, we can ask the questions of what worked well here? And then also, what didn't? How did this affect me? And then, what will I carry forward next time? Our reflection matters because it deepens our self-awareness, and self-awareness is one of the strongest antidotes to burnout. When we know what's happening in us, we are able to adjust. But when we don't reflect, we are flying blind. And as educators, reflection matters even more. Our learners are constantly watching not just what we do, but how we process what happens. If they see us reflect out loud with honesty, they learn that medicine isn't just about getting everything right. It is about growing through what happens, even when it is hard. Now, I made an important distinction there that I sort of glossed over, and that's reflection with intention. Now, if you're like me, things may replay in your head over and over and over again without you being intentional. That is more like ruminating on what happened. What I'm asking you to do is think about reflection that is purposeful, that allows you to really consider it and not feel bad about it. So let's move on to why reflection feels hard. The truth is, reflection is not always comfortable. And it's hard because it sometimes surfaces guilt. Sometimes we might be thinking, oh, I should have handled that better. Or maybe it's, I should have said something different. Or maybe it's, I should have known what to do. This is what happens to me when I'm ruminating on things. Sometimes it also surfaces shame. We feel exposed when we admit to ourselves that we don't have all of the answers. And that can feel especially hard when we are reflecting in front of others. And then also, sometimes it just feels fake, like it's one more hoop to jump through, especially when it's tied to some sort of evaluation or documentation. That kind of reflection can feel more like performance than it does growth, even though usually that reflection and the request of you to reflect in that way is coming from a good place and hoping to help you grow. And that brings me to my point that discomfort does not mean that reflection is bad. In fact, discomfort is often where the learning lives. The trick is to approach it with curiosity instead of judgment. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong? We can ask, what can I learn here? Instead of saying, I failed, we might ask, well, what is one thing that I might try differently next time? Reflection is all about growth. And growth does not mean that it's about perfection. So, if we really want to grow and use reflection to do that, we need to know how to do that authentically. So I ask the question, how do we move reflection from a checkbox to something that is real and meaningful? Well, I'm going to share some practical approaches that I hope you can use. The first approach is to build in small pauses. Reflection does not have to look like a very specific thing. For example, it does not have to be a 30-minute journaling session. Although, if that's how you want to reflect, it can be. Reflection might look like 2 minutes in your car before you drive home, asking yourself the question, what's one thing that went well today? Or what's one thing that I would do differently? Or it might be using the voice memo app on your phone as you're going for a walk, talking about the important moments of your day. The second strategy that I want to share is to use guiding questions. Sometimes reflection feels difficult or it stalls because we just don't know where to start. And so I want to share a few prompts that you can try. What surprised me today? What energized me today? What drained me today? What do I want to remember for next time? And my favorite, what am I grateful for today? The third strategy that I want to share is to share reflection with others. Reflection is so much more powerful when it is in community. That community might be with a colleague or a peer group or even a learner. Imagine if you end a by saying, here is what I noticed about how that went. And here is what I would like to do differently next time. You're not only reflecting, you're modeling how the reflection works. And I want you to notice that I didn't say, here is what you can do differently next time. As the educator, you can reflect on how you can be a better educator next time or a better leader the next time. The fourth strategy is to keep it authentic. And this is so crucial. Reflection does not have to be formal, and it does not have to be polished. In fact, the more real it is, the more powerful it can become. It can just look like jotting a sentence down in a notebook, making a quick voice memo, as I already mentioned, or even having a short conversation with a trusted colleague. Sometimes we'll say, hey, can we debrief about that situation? That can be really helpful. Or maybe it's reflection in advance of, I'm really worried about having this conversation and I'm trying to work through my feelings about what it is. Can we talk about that? So I want to invite you to try something right now, wherever it is that you are. I want you to think back to the last 24 hours of your workday, of your home life, wherever you want to focus today. And I want you to ask yourself, what one moment in the last 24 hours stood out to me? And then once you have that moment in your mind's eye, I want you to ask yourself, how did it affect me? Physically, emotionally, or mentally? And then once you think about that, what is one small thing I would carry forward from that experience? That was reflection. That is all it takes to move beyond the checkbox into something real. That took less than 2 minutes, even if you paused to think about the answers. So now that you've tried that, I want to leave you with a reframe about reflection. Reflection is not about judgment. Reflection is about growth. It is not about proving that you are perfect. It is about practicing curiosity with yourself or your team. And here is where the leadership piece comes in. As educators, we have a responsibility to model reflections for others. Because if our learners only see us striving for perfection and never ever admitting mistakes, never ever pausing to process, they will believe that that is the standard. And that, my friends, is a straight line to burnout. But if they do see us reflect, and they see us reflect in a way that is honest, that is authentic, and even imperfect, then they will learn that growth is possible. They will learn that mistakes are part of the process, that being a professional means that you never, ever stop learning. When we model reflection, we don't just grow ourselves, we grow a culture where learning is valued over perfection, and also where curiosity is stronger than shame. And that is a culture that I want to lean into and that I want everyone to experience. Okay, so today we explored reflection. We explored why it matters. We talked about why it feels uncomfortable. And we talked about ways to practice it in ways that are real, authentic, and growth-oriented. We talked about small pauses, guiding questions, reflecting as a community, and then keeping it authentic. And then we reframed reflection from being a box to check into a tool that can be used for curiosity, growth, and shaping your culture. And I hope that was helpful. Now, in our next episode, We are going to talk all about recovery, how to replenish your energy and rebuild resilience after the hard seasons, because there's always hard seasons, instead of just pushing forward. And if today's conversation resonated with you, I would love for you to do 3 quick things. First, subscribe or follow the show. That way you will never miss an episode. The second is to leave a rating or a review. It helps other educators and leaders in medicine find this podcast, and it helps remind me that these conversations matter. And then third, share this episode with a colleague who might need to hear that what they are carrying is not theirs alone. Because here's the truth. Reflection is not about proving yourself. It is about knowing yourself and knowing how to move forward. And that is one of the most powerful tools that you have as a clinician, as an educator, and a leader. Thank you for listening in and for choosing curiosity over perfection.
Thanks for joining me on The Hidden Load. Tag me on Instagram at Dr. Tina Wheat or email me at santina@santinawheat.com with your takeaways and ideas. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, let's lighten your hidden load.